On the pitch-black night skies over Syria, where every radar beam is distorted by electronic jamming and every movement in the air is either predator or prey, a confrontation unfolded with lightning speed, eerily silent, yet powerful enough to send shockwaves through the global military community. A Russian Su-35 vanished from the sky in mere seconds. No one heard the roar of engines, no one saw tracer rounds or flares. But one thing was certain: on the screens of intelligence analysts, a streak of light launched from an American fighter jet ended in a red dot in the eastern Syrian desert. The perpetrator? The F-15EX, America's next-generation Eagle, a machine once dismissed by many as outdated and obsolete. Yet today, it brought down what Russia hailed as its pride and joy. What's happening here? Welcome to the B-21 Radar channel, where conflicts aren't just recounted, they're dissected through the lens of an expert. Here the battlefield isn't just a place of combat, it's a stage for unveiling power, strategy, and geopolitical ambition. Let's rewind to the moment when the sun dipped below the mountains in western Syria, as darkness enveloped the war-torn skies. No one could have predicted that, in that very moment, a fateful clash would unfold. Not between ground forces, not between air defense missiles and stealth aircraft, but a rare showdown between two of the most advanced air combat icons of Russia and the United States, the Russian Air Force's Su-35 and the U.S. Air Force's F-15EX Eagle II. According to multiple sources, defense analysts in the Middle East report that in late June 2025, a Russian Su-35S crashed on the eastern fringes of Deir ez-Zor province, near areas where Iranian forces and Hezbollah operate. Russia offered no explanation, no wreckage images surfaced, and no pilot's funeral was held. Everything was shrouded in an unsettling silence. What caught the attention of Western intelligence communities, however, was that around the same time, a squadron of U.S. F-15EX jets was abruptly redeployed from Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar to the Iraq-Syria border, without announcement, without media coverage. Just days later, the Su-35 went down. Was this a strategic warning shot or the first proof of America's new generation air combat prowess? To understand this, we need to revisit what was happening in Syria at the time. Since the escalation of the Syrian conflict in 2014, Russia has deployed advanced aircraft, with the Su-35S standing out as its trump card in the Middle East. Boasting unmatched maneuverability, an Irbis-E radar with a 350-kilometer range, and R-77M missiles capable of striking targets 200 kilometers away, it has long kept Israeli, French, and even American aircraft on edge. But the United States wasn't standing still. Under President Donald Trump's administration, a program delayed for nearly 2 decades was revived. The F-15EX Eagle II, a 4th-generation plus fighter infused with 21st century technology and spirit. More importantly, it was Trump's bold statement that the U.S. didn't need to rely solely on stealth to dominate the skies. It had a steel fist to overpower any adversary in air combat. In June 2025, the F-15EX was secretly deployed to northeastern Syria under the guise of supporting transport missions and enforcing local no-fly zones. In reality, it was on high alert to confront Russian aircraft, particularly Su-35s, which had been repeatedly approaching U.S. C-17 transport formations during resupply missions to bases like Al-Tanf. A clash was inevitable, and then it happened. On the night of June 22nd, a Russian Su-35 took off from Hmeimim Air Base, flew along a corridor, and veered east. According to intelligence reports, its mission was to intercept a U.S. drone formation, but on its path, it entered the kill zone of an F-15EX positioned strategically at over 18,000 meters. A perfect lock-on, no warning, no chance to counter. An AIM-1 20D missile was fired from over 70 kilometers away. Seconds later, an Israeli observation post in the Golan Heights detected a fireball. A radar signal vanished, and silence descended into the night. The question is, why didn't the Su-35 react? Was its Irbis-E radar overwhelmed, or did the Russian pilot underestimate the capabilities of a supposedly classic F-15? The answer lies in the stark contrast between the two nations' combat doctrines. Russia relies on close-range dogfighting, speed, and superior maneuverability, while the US bets on AESA radar, beyond visual range weapons, and cutting-edge electronic warfare. The F-15EX, equipped with BAE systems, EPWSS, can detect and neutralize enemy radar before being detected. In that nighttime battle, the Su-35 likely didn't know what hit it until its HUD flashed red and alarms blared. Too late. The dogfight ended without the enemy ever being seen. No technical showdown, no cinematic aerial duel, just a cold, calculated strike and a message echoing across the war zone. The US didn't need an F-35 or a B-2 Spirit. A single F-15EX, reborn under Trump's leadership, was enough to reassert dominance over the Middle Eastern skies. So what's next? Will Russia retaliate, or will it stay silent to avoid escalation? Will the US deploy the F-15EX to more fronts, and what deeper implications lie ahead? Is this a sign that Trump's unspoken deterrence doctrine is making a comeback after this lightning strike in Syrian skies, where a Russian Su-35S was erased in silence? The real question isn't who fired the shot, but why the F-15X? Why did the US Air Force choose a platform designed in the 1970s to take on Russia's most advanced fighter? Is this a step backward or a strategic leap forward in modern air combat doctrine? To answer, we must look back. The original F-15 Eagle was developed in the late 1960s as a response to the Soviet MiG-25, with a simple but crystal clear philosophy. No enemy could challenge it in the air, even unseen. For decades, the F-15A, F-15C, and F-15E Strike Eagle forged an undefeated legend, for the U.S. Air Force never once shot down in actual dogfights. But times changed. Battlefields evolved from Top Gun-style duels to complex electronic environments filled with radar, long-range missiles, and hybrid warfare. Many believe the F-15's era was over until Donald Trump stepped in. During his first term, Trump vowed to restore America's military might, not just by building new weapons, but by making existing ones invincible. That's when the F-15EX program was reborn. Instead of pouring billions into unproven aircraft, Trump banked on a battle-tested airframe upgraded with the latest technology. The F-15X isn't just an F-15. It's a fusion of traditional power and modern intelligence, like a seasoned warrior equipped with an AI-driven brain. Specifically, the F-15EX boasts the AESA APG-82 radar, capable of tracking and locking onto over 20 targets simultaneously at ranges exceeding 200 kilometers. Its wings and fuselage carry BAE Systems EPWSS, which jams enemy radar, sends false signals, and achieves active stealth without radar-absorbing coatings. The F-15X can carry up to 20 air-to-air missiles, twice the payload of an F-35, including the AIM-1 20D with a 160-kilometer range, guided by active radar, and the AIM-9X Sidewinder for close-range dogfights. This means the F-15EX can strike from distances where enemies can't respond, and if engaged up close, still has the firepower to fight to the end. More crucially, with an upgraded airframe and fully digitized cockpit, the F-15EX connects in real time to the U.S. Air Force's command and control network, making it not just a fighter, but a node in a unified warfighting grid. In short, the F-15EX is built to survive and triumph in every level of modern warfare. So why pit the F-15X against the Su-35? The answer lies in the battlefield. Syria isn't the South China Sea, with carrier fleets and comprehensive radar coverage from command ships. It's a chaotic airspace teeming with danger, where Russian, Iranian, and Syrian aircraft operate in a tangled mess. In such an environment, stealthy F-22s or F-35s could trigger strategic misunderstandings. But the F-15X, with its familiar silhouette, is the perfect choice. It delivers overwhelming power without provocation, allowing the US to act decisively and retreat without leaving a trace. That's Trump's philosophy. Strength isn't in how many stealth weapons you have, but in making your enemy too afraid to test their luck. In this context, the F-15EX became an extension of Trump's proactive deterrence policy in the Middle East. It's phasing out the aging F-15E, keeping Iran at arm's length while neutralizing threats from Russia and its proxies. More than a fighter, the F-15EX is a strategic symbol, a reminder to every power in the Middle East that the US can strike at any moment. When that Su-35 vanished from Syrian skies, it wasn't just a pilot lost, it was Russia's psychological defenses shattered. A weapon they trusted was defeated by a jet they deemed outdated. They didn't anticipate that the F-15X wasn't just a plane. It was a political choice, a precise punch forged by real-world combat experience and empowered by a man who declared, "We don't need wars. We just need to make them too scared to start one." That man is none other than the current U.S. President Donald Trump. So after the Su-35's downfall, will Russia retreat or prepare a counterstrike? Is the F-15EX the only card America is ready to play, or is it part of a broader deployment strategy? Some battles leave no wreckage, no viral videos, no statements from defense ministries, yet their truth shines through in geopolitical shifts. On June 22, 2025, a Russian Su-35S reportedly took off from Hmeimim Air Base in Latakia. Open-source intelligence data indicates it left western Syrian airspace and headed towards central Syria, where U.S. and Allied convoys operated near the Euphrates River. Within 45 minutes, all signals from the Su-35 ceased. No radio contact, no secondary radar response. The only anomaly recorded by Israeli and French monitoring stations was a brief heat signature, a fleeting streak of light, followed by absolute silence. 60 kilometers southeast of Deir ez-Zor, a faint explosion was detected by optical satellites at 3:41 a.m. Damascus time. No ground imagery emerged and no forces reached the site. 48 hours later, a Telegram account tracking Russian military activity reported a Su-35 pilot missing during a nighttime patrol in Syria, with no status updates, no confirmation from Russia's defense ministry, and no response from its air force. Everything was swept under the rug as if it never happened. Why the silence from Russia? Did they know exactly what occurred? And if this was a true dogfight, what was the real sequence of events? Based on flight paths, timing, and radar data, U.S. defense experts believe the F-15X ambushed the Su-35 in a tactical deterrence mission. Deployed from Al Udeid in Qatar, the F-15EX flew through a U.S.-controlled air corridor in eastern Iraq before entering the Deir ez-Zor border zone. At an altitude above 18,000 meters, it activated its AESA APG-82 radar in variable frequency scanning mode, detecting the enemy without revealing its position. As the Su-35 entered the area, the F-15EX had ample time to calculate its trajectory, speed, and distance. An AIM-120D missile was launched from 72 kilometers away, a range nearly impossible to counter without prior warning. The Su-35 had no time to deploy flares, evade, or communicate alerts. This leads to two theories. Either the Su-35 didn't detect the F-15EX at all, or it was so heavily jammed that its radar and sensors were completely disabled. In either case, this could only happen if the US had prepared meticulously and the F-15EX wielded superior electronic warfare and airspace control capabilities. If true, this was a direct slap to the Russian Air Force's pride. The Su-35 isn't just a fighter, it's a symbol, Moscow's claim to parity with the West, its ace in soft deterrence campaigns across Syria and Eastern Europe. Shot down without retaliation, unacknowledged with no tribute to the pilot, this wasn't just silence, it was an unspoken admission of defeat. Why didn't Russia respond, issue warnings, or bolster its Syrian air presence? Why choose silence? The answer may lie in the fear of escalating a direct confrontation with the US. The man in the Oval Office isn't a soft-spoken politician, but President Donald Trump, who once vowed that any nation targeting a US aircraft would face fire and fury like the world has never seen. Russia knows that admitting the loss would ignite internal pressure for retaliation. And a direct clash with the US in Syrian skies? They're not certain they'd win, especially with a struggling economy and the Ukraine front stretched thin. A confrontation in Syria could be the straw that breaks the camel's back. Silence, then, was their strategy. But that silence won't last forever. Satellite imagery later revealed Russia withdrew some Su-35s from Syria, replacing them with older Su-30s and MiG-29s. Meanwhile, the Pentagon approved deploying two F-15EX squadrons to the Middle East, one in Qatar, one in Jordan. At the Abu Dhabi Security Conference in early July, President Trump declared, "The United States will not yield any airspace in the world. We will fly anywhere and protect our allies with the planet's most powerful weapons." This wasn't just a statement, it was confirmation that the US conducted a dogfight over Syria, an unnamed battle with no public evidence but profound strategic consequences. Russia lost tactical confidence, Iran lost the morale boost from Russian air support, and America's Middle Eastern allies felt more secure than ever. Is the Su-35 merely the beginning? Will Moscow dare to retaliate, or will it retreat further into a non-responsive strategy? And if the F-15EX is just the surface, what lies at the core of Trump's new military strategy after the Su-35 vanished from Syrian skies and Moscow's 3 days of tense silence? There's no doubt the F-15X didn't just engage, it dominated. And this victory wasn't a duel between pilots, it was the rise of a new military philosophy, a doctrine bearing President Trump's name. In his first term, Trump faced criticism for lacking a clear defense strategy, for not delivering lengthy speeches or publishing white papers. But in reality, he acted, and each action was a piece of his absolute deterrence doctrine, America won't start wars, but it will strike first if threatened. The F-15EX is the cornerstone of that philosophy. It's not a tech showcase like the F-35, or a psychological stealth weapon like the B-2 or B-21. It's a direct, visible, ready-to-fire punch. That's why it was chosen for strategic overwatch in the volatile Middle East, where Russia, Iran, and their proxies expand influence daily. Why not the F-35? Why bet on a design from the last century? The answer is pragmatism. Trump's doctrine prioritizes combat effectiveness over flashy technology. The F-35 excels at stealth but requires long prep times, high operating costs, and limited weapon capacity in stealth mode. The F-15EX, however, can take off in minutes, carry 20 air-to-air missiles, fly long ranges, sustain extended engagements, and thrive in harsh battlefield conditions like the Middle East. Trump understood that the region doesn't need complexity, it needs presence. The F-15EX embodies that. A jet the enemy sees but dares not touch. A clear symbol that America is here, and crossing the red line brings immediate consequences. After the Su-35's fall, the Pentagon greenlit expanding F-15EX deployments across the Gulf, at Al Udeid in Qatar, Azraq in Jordan, and even on standby for rapid transfer to Red Sea carriers. The US also began offering the F-15EX to close allies. Saudi Arabia, Israel, and the UAE are negotiating to acquire it, not just for its strength, but for the message it sends. Where the F-15EX flies, Trump's doctrine protects. The F-15EX doesn't just guard the skies. It enables safe drone operations, supports convoys, special forces, and electronic warfare units. When needed, it can carry cruise missiles to strike enemy command centers in minutes. This versatility is what Trump pursues. Not a specialized weapon, but a comprehensive platform. At the Gulf Security Conference in Abu Dhabi, Trump stated, "We don't need hundreds of bases worldwide. We need tools strong enough and people ready to use them without hesitation." Those tools patrol the Middle Eastern skies day and night, not to seek war, but to prevent it. Trump's doctrine isn't passive defense, it's active deterrence, striking when necessary and responding with unimaginable force. With the F-15EX, the US sends a dual message, ready to cooperate, protect allies, and maintain stability, but if threatened, if allies are attacked, if red lines are crossed, retaliation will be swift. No UN Security Council debates, no media fanfare, no massive weapon shipments across oceans, just a pilot's click, a radar lock, and an AIM-120D tearing through the sky. The F-15EX is the essence of Trump's doctrine, fast, precise, unrelenting. While Russia scrambles to restore faith in the Su-35, and Iran patches its air defenses with Russian and Chinese systems, the US is ready for the next generation of warfare, not through numbers, but through quality, not through words, but through action. That action is called the F-15X Eagle II, a fighter, a strategic symbol, and the military identity of America in the Trump era. The story seems to end here, but it's only just begun. The final question lingers. If the F-15EX can down a Su-35 in a silent strike, if Trump's doctrine can restore air superiority, what happens when America unleashes its full might? Will the Middle East stabilize, or become a testing ground for next-generation weapons? And most crucially, will any U.S. adversary dare take flight again? Thank you for watching our analysis of this conflict. Here we don't just tell stories. We dissect every move, every tactic, every shadow behind each battle. If you're passionate about geopolitics, military power, and the real events unfolding behind global battlefields, the B-21 Raider channel is for you. Don't forget to subscribe, as each video paints a vivid picture of data, analysis, and truths. Not everyone dares to speak. If this content resonates, leave a comment to share your perspective. War isn't a game, and every viewpoint matters.